across the road, owned by the Sperrys and by the Clays, that very likely might be interested given their immediate proximity to the property. If there are questions, I'll try to answer them.
It would go, if the homeowners association bought it, would go nicely with the green area they already have there.
It would, yes.
All right.
Yeah, that would be my hope, that somebody abutting, so they can expand on their piece per se and
Yeah.
just be a protected area.
Yeah.
No, I think we can go along, at least I can go along with the fact, putting the fact that it's a non-buildable lot, as it seems to be at this point, so nobody gets a surprise.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay, item 6. What?
You didn't take a vote, you didn't, what are we doing?
Oh,
And we
sorry.
didn't talk about Osprey,
Osprey
but
Lane,
109 Osprey Lane.
Karen, you got Osprey Lane?
So Osprey Lane was taken by tax deed several years ago as well. That particular lot has been to court twice. They've been before the zoning board for variances for building, and it's been denied twice. And it's been to court twice, and the court found in our favor. It's floods. I've got pictures of it underwater. Years ago, it had a trailer on it, and it was probably taking off in the 80s. The trailer was removed. And then there's just a shed there, I think.
Used to be a car on there too.
Used to be a car, but the car's finally gone. So it also would be a nice, not buildable lot that I would imagine one of the abutters would like to buy. It's also on a private road that everybody, all lot owners, including the town, are supposed to pay $300 a year for the maintenance of the road. So why should it cost us money when we can get rid of it? So that's why I think it should be sold. And it is not buildable.
So, Town Administrator, we can do this just by bid, right?
Yes.
It's a traditional bid process. That way, all the neighbors and everybody can.
Yeah, and as we've done in the past, I work with Karen, we get in a butters list, they get a copy mailed directly to them.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. We have a motion.
We do.
Well, you're doing, can I ask Mr. Hum a question? Bill, is this, the Osprey Lane, is that one of the properties that you guys looked at? In the Conservation Commission, that is?
We had looked at it many years ago, and the question at that time was, is there any merit to having the town retain it for river access or riverfront protection? And the river frontage is so short, and because of the limitations on parking, we felt that public access would not be
Okay.
warranted, not workable there.
So you're okay with?
Absolutely okay, yes.
I just wanted to make sure,
Thank you.
because usually the process, we ask you, what's your, thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? So I'd like to enter a motion. Move to sell the town-owned property of 64 Tamarack Road by the following process, which is via sealed bid. Move to sell the town-owned property of 109.
Only one motion on the floor.
I'm sorry?
Only one motion on the floor at a time. So I second that first
I was
motion.
gonna just put both of them.
I'm seconding the first motion. And I don't have any major discussion.
I don't have any discussion.
Glad to hear it. I'd like to enter another motion.
No?
Got to call the vote.
Oh, okay. Vote. Selectman Bugby?
Aye.
Aye.
Selectman LaCourse?
Aye.
Selectman Brown? Aye. That motion carries. Second motion, move to sell the town-owned property at 109 Osprey Lane by the following process via sealed bid.
Second.
No discussion.
No discussion.
No discussion?
No discussion. Call the vote.
Okay, call the vote. Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes. Yes.
Selectman LaCourse?
Yes.
Selectman Brown, yes.
Motion carries.
Motion carries.
All right. We got you good tonight.
Sorry?
Been working you over tonight.
Could I ask if the chair would entertain allowing public comment? I think there's somebody here that might want to say something to us.
Yes, sure.
Would you do that?
Didn't see anybody.
I don't know if Mr. Banks would like to.
Well, actually, the ears that needed to hear my comment heard it and left,
Oh, okay, never mind that.
and with the body that they were attached to.
Okay. That's it.
Okay.
So then we will move on. Julie Glover, Town Administrator.
Are we skipping number 6?
Item number 6.
Oh, did I not do, oh, I'm sorry, I apologize, yes. I know this guy, Chairman Kerry Brown. Talk about town communication. This won't be too long. I had an experience to visit some people out on Thurston Woods. And during my visit there, I didn't know them, I met them when I got there. During my visit there, we got to the fact that I was on the select board, and they started asking me questions about what was going on in town, and what's going on with the town center vision committee, and other questions, and they made the comment that they really just don't know what's going on. And they made that comment several times. I said, well, you know, we have the e-crier, we have, we do make an effort to get information out there, but apparently it just is not getting to what I'm considering a good percentage of the people, just based on the comments that they said. They said that they're not aware of what's going on. I asked them about the e-crier. They really said they don't, you know, by the time they get home, et cetera, they don't go around looking to get to the e-crier. After that same conversation, I had another conversation with a young lady who we got in the same type of discussion. And I said, you know, we put up a large bulletin board TV at the transfer station. And she said, what bulletin board TV at the transfer station? I said, it's right by the exit, you can't miss it. She said, no, there is nothing there. I go there once a week, and I have not seen anything there. So, you know, it bothers me that we put all this effort into e-criers and TV screens and so on, but we're really not getting our message, like the TCVC, et cetera, that needs to get their message out into the community, into the population. And I don't have any ideas to fix it, other than I know at one time Selectman Bugby mentioned that you did a paper issue of the Lee e-crier. I'm sorry?
Years ago, we used to.
Yeah, years ago. It seems to me as though we need something that gets into the mailbox, that they get, and they'll go in the house and lay it open and read it, hopefully. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I just wanted to make a comment that it does not appear that we're getting the message out into the community the way we need to get the reaction we're looking for. So, open, I'm sure everyone's open for suggestions. I don't know what like I said, I don't know what the answer is.
The reason that we went away from the paper product is, Julie, how many pages did it normally run?
Geez, we haven't done one.
Yeah,
Well, I
Well,
don't know.
e-crier now.
e-crier now, if we were to print it, I'm
I
saying.
don't know, was it 8 pages, 10 pages?
And,
I'm not sure. I mean, Denise would know because she prints it for about 5 or 6 people and mails it.
and then the mailing,
And then the mailing, right.
So-
I mean, yeah, I mean, when we were doing the mailing, the mailed quarterly crier, it was thousands of dollars a year.
It's about 700-800 to do a mailing, I think, something like that.
Well, we spend more than that to do the voter's guide.
True.
It's
Is
about
it same
three,
number
it's
of
about $300 for the postage,
Mhm.
if we do it, that EP, every door
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
direct.
Yeah,
And then it's certainly over $1,000
for the printing
for
part,
the printing
so that's like
and the
1,300.
collating, and that's maybe 6 pages.
Well, the difference is the value that you get if you're able to get it into their hands as opposed to, I mean, if they're not gonna go into their computer and look for the e-crier, if they're not going to do that, don't take the time to do it, then all of the work that goes into the e-crier is really for naught. I mean, now, there is a lot of people that do get it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, it's like a little over 600 to get. The only thought that I had is there was a group of people that did this last summer, and they all saw a need for it, but there was nobody that was stepping up to do it. Even the one that Wendy Fogg is doing, she's looking for someone to take it over.
Right.
Because it's a bear.
That's a lot of work.
So the only thought I would have is maybe, we used to do it every quarter, and, it takes some work. Maybe we did it once a year or twice a year. And one of the things that you brought up in terms of getting information out, maybe we time it so that it goes out when we want to get something important to their hands, like what's coming up this fall in terms of the town center. Maybe we send out a hard copy of it with articles about, what we want them to know about. So basically kind of like a voter's guide, but kind of more of a newsy kind of thing.
Right,
So-
although I think if we're gonna do this and do it as a mailing, we ought to keep it brief. I mean, honestly, I think if you send people 6 pages, they're not gonna read the 6 pages. I think if we're gonna do that, keep it to 1 page, front and back, and like a flyer, and just really highlight events that are coming up, or things that you really want them to know about. I mean, because we put a lot of, we put a lot of regional things in the e-crier,
Yeah, sure we do.
and the repetitive, stuff, but I don't know that we would want to take the money, quite frankly, to do that in a mailer.
The other option is that we could do say a quarter mailer or something like that, or some important time, but ask the people first if they want hard copy. You just said you make, 10 hard copies or 10
I mean, we do that for the e-crier now, and I think it's up to 6.
It's obvious that a lot of people don't want it, they just want to use the computer, that's the end, or use their mobile phone at this point. So if we, this way here, we kind of put the onus on them to request the fact, can I have a hard copy? At least we'll know out there, and then maybe the numbers won't be as large as we think.
Well, in terms of voters, there's over 3,000 voters. So if you got 3,000 adults, and we've only got 600, even if that's a household, double it maybe, that's 1,200. There's still a difference of
Yeah.
1,800 people. So I suspect some of those, I don't care.
That's
Send
what
me
I'm
my
saying.
tax bill, give me my services, leave me alone, which I know those people are out there, but I suspect there's some people that
Well, that's
that
what
are
I'm saying.
older, that don't do electronic media, that, have no clue, and they hear things,
I think we're saying the
Yeah.
same thing. I mean, there's people who want to use computers and people who just don't care, and then there's another group that want a hard copy. And so there's no reason why somehow we could ask who wants
Well,
one.
I realize this is like a chicken and
Yeah.
egg argument. I mean, every e-crier says, if you want to get a mailed copy,
Yes, right at the end of
let us know, or if you know anybody who wants to get a copy mailed.
That's interesting when you think about it. This, number one, this was not an elderly couple by any means. They weren't a young couple, they were a middle-aged couple. He's a lawyer,
Mhm.
It's just that by the time they get to the end of the day, they're not gonna sit down in front of a computer and look for, something to read. And therein lies the problem. They're not searching for it, and if they don't search for it, there's nothing else.
The other opportunity is just say, hard copies are available in town hall and also in the library.
Yeah, we say that too.
I mean, that's pretty straightforward, it's like
Yeah,
anything
but you have
else.
to read the e-crier to get that statement.
Well, I'm trying to, how do I get to that statement?
Exactly.
I mean, really,
I understand your question.
the thing to do would be to time it so that we send something with the tax bills, which I think we can do that. There's some statute that, I think we can do that.
do you have to have governing body approval or legislative body approval?
I'd have to look that up. I know you have to get approval from
somebody.
somebody, I just don't remember which one
So
it
could you
is.
check that out and let us know next
Yeah.
time?
Yep,
Because that would be fortuitous, because we're sending it out
yes,
anyway.
we're sending it
Sure.
out anyway, right? And most people open it. Not everybody, but most people open it.
Can I ask you a question? The people who have escrows that we get a large check from one institution, those tax bills actually go to the people or they go to the institution?
Both,
Oh, they go to both?
yeah,
Okay,
it's,
so-
it goes electronically to the aggregator,
Oh, okay,
I think,
okay.
and then the homeowners get
Okay.
a copy mailed.
So the homeowner will get it, whatever it is. that was-
And we don't open it.
And you open it. All right, Karen's off the list, she's not,
Okay,
I mean, obviously, we're never gonna have a guarantee that everybody that we mail something to is gonna read it.
I just wanted to bring it up to say we're just not getting out the way we need to, that's all.
Yeah, all right, I will look into what we can do with the tax
and
bills.
we're not unique.
No, it's
The
everybody.
TCVC, in terms of the first round, we dealt with that because people just don't read the stuff that you send out. That's why we did the thing at the transfer station.
Yeah.
That's the, I think, in my opinion, that was the biggest impact that we had on that particular vote, is talking to those people and handing out those pamphlets. It's a pain in the, you know what, standing there all day, and we had volunteers, and that was very helpful.
I
And I
mean,
think that's the way you're gonna get people.
That's the other way to think about it. I mean, like you say, it's a bit of a pain, and you're asking people to take a Saturday or whatever, but let's just suppose you wanted to do this flyer twice a year. Hand it out at the transfer station. That's where you're gonna
Yep.
capture the most people.
That's right.
Plus, it's an opportunity for them to tell you, leave me
Right.
alone.
But I mean, you
What else?
faced,
Ask
you
questions.
faced this with the 250th.
Yeah.
You sent people stuff in the mail, and they still
Yeah.
didn't pay attention.
Sure.
Great information, yeah.
Mhm.
There was only one lady that I talked to that says, yes, she got it and she received it, but she's gonna be out of town, so she can't attend. Other people that we spoke to, what are you talking about? And we had the mail and they said, no, I never received that. It's
Yeah.
like, okay.
John?
John Tappan, I'm a member of the TCVC. And one of the other things that we have talked about is the Leaf Fair. The Leaf Fair is an opportunity when a lot of people in town go that may not pay attention to other things that are happening in town, but there's an opportunity to have some kind of display and probably a better place for an outreach than when, at the transfer station, when people are trying to fly through and get rid of the trash and get out. So that's, I know that there was a talk about maybe the town was gonna have some kind of a, I don't know, a community display for all the committees in town or that wanted to participate. I haven't heard about that. I haven't tried to follow up with the committee. But along with this discussion, that seems like something we should really put some emphasis on.
Can we ask the fair lady about that?
What was the question?
She know who she is.
I guess the question is, and this doesn't have to be in public, but the question was, in order for, say, the Town Center Vision Committee to have a display, a tent or something or other with some kind of displays and perhaps handouts at the fair, what do we have to do and what's the schedule?
Just tell me what you want. Just fill out a form. Tell me how much booth space you want.
So you have the form, is it online? Or
It
can-
will be. I'll send it to you.
Okay,
All the committees and commissions get them.
okay.
And then you just tell me what you want.
So that's something for our next meeting.
Excellent.
That's easy.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7. Julie Glover, Town Administrator.
So an item that Mr. Bugby brought to my attention, I had not seen this arrive in the mail. Yeah, we received notice from the New Hampshire Division of Historical Resources that the Freight Depot, AKA the Historical Museum, is eligible for listing on the New Hampshire State Register of Historic Places. So we need to agree to do this. I believe the board needs to agree. And then it needs a signature of the chairman.
Just for mine. What is the Freight Depot? Which
Historical
The
museum.
The museum?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I assume that the board is in agreement that we want to put it on?
Absolutely,
yes,
Yeah.
sure.
Okay.
But when you talk about a historical place, it's been moved. It's a historical building, it's in a different place.
It's,
Sorry.
there's a rating system, and it rated high because it's the only one left that they know of in the state of New Hampshire.
Wow.
It used to be, we used to have, well, as you know, numerous ones throughout the state, but this is the only one that they have information and historical records in terms of that it was actually here. Because it was moved to Epping, as you know. It was a house, it was a storage building, it was donated by Mr. Brown, not this Mr. Brown, to the town, to the historical society, and that's where it's at. So in terms of its scoring, it got points off because it's been moved twice, but it scored extremely high in terms of its historical importance and its historical value. So that's what it is.
Thank you.
Because the hobo shed, the tool shed, the tramp room, hobo shed, and the town hall are already on. They were on earlier this year. So we now have 3 buildings in the town center that are on the historical register. There are other numerous buildings throughout the town that are on the register already, but those 3 are now on. So what that does for us, Jim, is it now opens up funding sources from the state through the LCHIP program to fund renovation, restoration, that kind of stuff. So.
I'd like to circle back to the hazard mitigation plan update grant. Heard Ms. Rossi give some explanation of it. I do need a motion, and the motion has to be precisely what is written. And then then we have the paperwork for signatures.
Okay, so I'd like to enter a motion. The Town of Lee Board of Selectmen and majority vote accepted the terms of the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program as presented in the amount of $6,000 for the local hazard mitigation plan update. Furthermore, the board acknowledges that the total cost of this project will be $8,000, in which the town will be responsible for a 25% match, $2,000. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I have no discussion either. So.
No discussion. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passes.
So this
That's
requires,
it, motion passes.
thank you. So this requires signature on one page and then initials on all the other pages.
There we go.
Good turnout on Saturday?
Good, yes, yeah.
Did you sell out or?
Well, because I bought the last 3 chickens, yes, we sold
okay.
out.
Excellent.
Last year I bought 50 last chickens.
So you ate chicken for,
We're still eating last year's chicken. There's a story back of what happened.
oh, in terms of the 50?
50, yeah. Well, we ordered from Good and Plenty Restaurant,
Yep.
and they come 48 halves in a box. We ordered 200, so they gave us an extra 48 to make the 200.
All right.
So we had 40 more than we
I don't
thought we were
understand.
getting.
You have to sign your name and then you have
I
to.
thought you only said we had.
We learned. I get the last 4 chickens from Market Basket. See, the restaurant gives us the opportunity to pick the size. Market Basket take their size, which tends to be big, and we can't make any money.
Right, restaurants, they have controlled sizes.
They have, they've got control of everything.
Signed in my space.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I'm gonna be number 3 on this page.
I'm gonna change it around just to screw them up.
Mr. Brown has to sign up again.
You figure out one?
Yep.
Mm.
Sorry,
Denise fixes everything. Where is she?
Oh, you missed one. I'm playing Denise today.
Yeah, doing a good job. Keep it up.
Mr. Brown just signed that one.
All right, Mr. Brown, you got initial right there.
And what was the other one on the front page, the second? You signed at the top of what's underneath that's highlighted.
Oh, I don't
That's
know.
an override.
Oh, that's first.
Is that the only place I missed?
Yeah.
Okay,
You're on a roll.
not bad. Oh, my screen went dark.
Uh-oh. Better plug it in.
Okay. Thank you. The annual fuel bid.
Yeah, I'm on fuel.
Most years, this goes by swimmingly. Not so much this year. So, for the past few years, we've received bids from Hanscoms, Hartman's, Palmer Oil, DF Richard when we're bidding the propane, which we only do every 3 years. This year, Hanscoms did not give us a bid. That company sold, I just know that they've sold, and I guess things are being done differently. I did call and say, gee, are you gonna be submitting a bid? And we never got anything, so. So the low bidder on all of the items is Hartman Oil and Propane. There were 2 occasions this past winter where the public safety complex ran out of number 2 heating oil, which was being supplied by Hartman. I spoke with the office, the police chief spoke with the office, and we did get that straightened out. Also, in past years, the highway supervisor has gotten the off-road diesel from Hanscoms, but again, they did not give us a bid this year. So my recommendation would be to go with Hartman Oil and Propane because they are the low bidder on all 3 fuel types. However, you may recall that this bid is a collaborative effort involving the Lee Church Congregational and School District, and I believe that Mr. Banks might have some comments relative to this.
Jim Banks. For the past 12 years, DF Richard has been the successful bidder on propane for the town, the church, and the school district, ranging somewhere in the range of 60 to 70,000 gallons, somewhere in that, maybe a little lower now. Some things have become more efficient. They have been viewed as the preferred vendor, very reliable. We've had excellent service from them. And this year things got hairy because they didn't have the lowest price. As she explained, Hartman has the lowest price. When I read the RSA talking about municipal bidding, it says the municipal bidding has to take the lowest responsible price. So now the question is, they have run the fire station out of fuel twice this year, and my understanding is other years as well. Is that something that would be contrary to reasonable or responsible? Does that mean that the Richard, as the vendor of years of service, should be looked at? Now, I've been in contact with the school district. The school district and the church both prefer to have Richard, a known quantity, been a known quantity for 12 years, actually longer than that. But the way it's been bid on the 3-year cycle, it's been 12 years. That means that there is a difference in price. When I saw that the low bid was not Richard, I considered Richard a very reliable vendor and asked them if they had a way to sharpen the pencil. which they were able to do. However, Julie reminds me that the municipal bidding process has to treat everybody equally, so therefore the better price from Richard than the competitor is not to be considered, at least by the town. Now, I've been in contact with the school since the discussions have taken place, and the school operates differently than municipal bidding, which I was not aware of. I didn't know anything about this. They operate on a preferred vendor basis, which means that when they go out to bid, they have a vendor that they prefer to have. If that bid does not come in lowest for the preferred vendor, then they go to that vendor and ask if that vendor can amend the price to be better or equal to or some manner improved, because that's the vendor that they wish to do business with. And the school district wants to do business with Richard. And the church will be happy to do that too. If the town were to take the Richard bid, that would increase the cost $342 over the lowest bid. Is it worth $342 to not have to worry about the reliability that we haven't felt good about with Hartman? Now on oil, Hartman Oil, if the town were to choose to buy the oil from the next bid up, which again happens to be Richard, it would be a $170 increment. And again, the question is it worth $170 not to worry about a couple of outages a year, a couple of running out? The school district does not want to run out. They are very, very emphatic about that. And the difference in price is more than worth that to them with the price that Richard already bid, and since Richard also came back with a lower price, that's also an advantage to them. Now, the possibility exists that the select board may wish to go in a different direction than the church and the school, and you may decide to go one direction and the other two go the other direction. Richard is happy to take the church and the school as they exist. Your bid that you have is for 63,000 gallons of propane. The town uses about a tenth of that. So that the price that you've got for the bulk of all of that may not exist if you separate. And as kind of an aside, the vendors like some of the customers economically better than others. And specifically, the church owns its tanks. So the dealer supplies the church a little bit less fuel in a year than the town buys, but it has no investment at all. They put the propane in the tank, they don't have to own anything. With the town, they have to own about $6,000 worth of tanks to be able to supply the town. The school district has a different advantage going for it, and that is that the volume is enormous. They're buying a large volume of fuel compared to the cost of the tanks. So basically, the church and the town have a business advantage buying propane over the town buying propane by itself. The town has kind of had a free ride with the other two carrying it. So I mentioned that. I don't know what you want to do. I'm not quite sure how this is going to go. But the school district does not want to buy from Hartman.
So I have not spoken with the school district. Number two, I have to say, the way that Mr. Banks outlined how the school bids for things is not something that in my 30 years of doing municipal purchasing I've ever heard of, where you go out to bid, but you have somebody you really like, so that's who you use. I've never heard of that.
Well, give the superintendent a call. It was all passed through him before I got it today.
I've been doing municipal purchasing for 30 years, and I've never heard of that. That's certainly not the way it's laid out in the model procurement code for state and local governments. I do know that the public safety complex ran out a couple of times. That is true. I don't believe that ever happened at the transfer station, where they're also supplied. I don't know I don't know what Hartman's reaction would be if we said, yeah, we went out to bid, but we're just not gonna take your bid, even though you're low. I mean, I don't, we didn't get any other bid for diesel other than Hartman and Palmer is much higher than Hartman, so do we tell Hartman, well, you were low on diesel, so we're gonna use you even though we're not gonna give you the bid for heating oil or propane because we don't think that you can be trusted to deliver the product. I honestly don't know what to do. I mean, we could throw them out, we could throw them all out and redo it.
What was the nature of the bid package that went out? Was it all or nothing?
Nope.
Was it
No,
pick your?
no, it's the same, the same way we've been doing it for at least the 6 years I've been here.
Okay, well,
It's that you don't have to, you could bid on one of the fuel types
Mhm.
or all of the fuel types, and that we award them separately.
okay, so they know that there's separate bids for each
Correct.
product.
Correct.
I have two questions for Mr. Banks, if he would answer them for us. What is their amended price, or what is, you said you went to them and it came back?
The low price that you have from the bid from Hartman is .535 over the Wall Street Journal price.
Okay.
Now, as I've done for a very long time, I have the dealers bid the price over a measurable benchmark.
Yep.
So they're really bidding their profit and overhead costs.
Right.
They're not bidding a fuel. The fuel is going to be what it is.
Yep.
So Hartman bid .535 and Richard took the last 5 out and made it .530.
So it's a little bit cheaper. The second question I have is Hartman, or is it in the RFP? Because I know in previous ones that we've done, Via Frechard also extends that particular price to people who volunteer and or work for the town,
That is not part of the bid.
That's not part of the bid.
Not part of the
but
bid.
they still do it.
That is their gift to the community and is not part of the bidding process.
And really, we should not consider that
That should be
in making the
left.
award. That shouldn't even,
I'm just thinking in terms of the total benefit to the town, because I'm not one of them, just make that.
I know, but
I'm not one of them.
we can't make that, unless we want to put that in the bid specification.
Okay.
No,
All right.
my opinion on this is that we have a bid process and we should stick to it. I don't think it's fair to go outside of that, the fact that you're not the lowest, so I'm gonna go call you up and say, I'd rather have you go with this process. Everybody got the same letter, everybody got the same bid, and we should just go by the lowest.
But that
I
means
just
that
find that it's just not proper to go around and say you're not low enough, so resubmit a bid. That bothers the hell out of me.
Well, the thing is, if we go with Hartman, Hartman is counting on propane sales of 63,000 gallons.
Yeah, I
And if
would,
we just do that, we cannot fulfill that.
correct, and I would have to contact them and say,
Mm-hmm.
will you honor your bid if it's only the whatever 10,000 gallons
That's correct.
that the town uses?
Mhm.
And you're right, they might say, no, we don't want to do that.
I think that John's comment about the integrity of the bid process is very important. You cannot have a bid process that if you don't like the prices, you call around because you have a vendor that you like better, so you kind of call around and share information about what the other bidders provided. I think that absolutely takes the integrity out of the bid process. Our bid process, if that's our process, we should stick with the process.
Well, the other thing that was offered up is we reject all of them and do it over again.
Yeah, redo it. I would go with that.
I don't,
Well, I mean.
that's you getting backhanded information. I don't think that's fair either. The bid was put forward, that's the bid. So you're gonna dump it out, and so they have this range of bidding against each other? This was the original bid.
Benefits the town in terms of cheaper prices, though.
Of all the options available to us, that's the one I'm the most comfortable with,
Which one?
It's
rejecting them all and rebidding it.
because in the bid thing, we can
I
accept.
mean, we've
and
soiled
reject
this one. I mean, we really, we
I
have.
guess you can call it that.
Well,
them. Yeah,
Well,
I mean-
let me ask the town administrator,
Yeah.
does DF Richard know what Hanscom is bidding?
Hanscom didn't bid.
Excuse me, Mark.
Hartman, I believe Mr. Banks told them.
So,
But he told them after the results were public. I'm not aware, I was at a conference, so I don't know whether anybody called and asked for the results. But
yeah, because,
then you'd think you would call Hartman and say, well, that's why you get into that.
That's
Well, then
correct.
they said this, and then you're going back and forth, and that's not how this process works.
so we're gonna start a process in the future that we put a bid process out, and if we don't like, if one guy says to the back door, might get something a little bit lower, we're gonna throw all these things out and redo it a bit
I
again.
mean, if we have to go by a different process, which I believe we do, and maybe we part company, maybe the
Maybe
church
we
can
do.
do however they want to conduct the process, and the school has their way of conducting the process, and we do it separately. Because I don't know what would prevent this from happening in the future.
Because I don't wanna start this every time we go through this, rebid it out and rebid it out again. We can
No, I
do this
agree with
3 or 4
you,
times.
absolutely, I agree 100%. The problem I have with this bid is that a lot of the information has been shared around. So we can either just go ahead and award it to Hartman, since he was the low bidder. Or we can just redo the,
I'm comfortable just awarding it to Hartman and see what happens. And then the hand is played by the school and the church, they'll have to make a decision if they want to stick with it.
We'll have to make a decision too if Hartman comes back and says, I can't give you that price.
Well, then that's a different, and I
Right.
understand that.
right,
At least they have the option, they've been awarded at this point.
I would, my favor is to reject all of them and do it again.
I just think there's.
see, the problem we have with the bid is that the terms have changed. Okay, the terms to them was you're gonna have whatever the gallonage was, and that's what they made their
Determination.
bid on, based on that. Now, if the three parties, if you cannot claim that you're gonna do 63,000 gallons, then you need to bid it based on what we consume.
Well, what you're really talking about is breaking up this cooperative.
Well,
Well, unless the church and the school agree to rebid it.
just accept, if the church and the school agrees to accept the results of the bid, that's one thing. But if they say, no, we're not gonna accept the results just based on price because we have a preferred vendor, and that's who we're gonna go with, either you have to change the terms, everybody has to go to the preferred vendor consideration, or it's broken up. They're not using the price to make a decision anyway.
Who actually bid this? Did the town bid this?
The town does.
So the town bids it for the school and the church as well?
Originally, I was doing it with the church.
Yep.
And then we combined with the town. When the town learned that they were paying more for fuel than the church was, well, that's because they weren't bidding it. And so it took some footwork, and finally they agreed with consultation from the municipal association that the two could put their volume together and bid it. And then when I found out what the school was paying, which was 70 cents a gallon more than what the bids were coming out for that we were getting, then we put the school in with it.
So if we rebid this process, how do we let these other competitors know what new DF Richard bidding was?
We can't.
Well, that's my problem.
No, I know.
That's
I know.
where I'm stuck here.
Public information though.
No,
it's not.
No, the 53 cents is
It's
not
not public
public
information.
information.
Oh, the 53, I thought you meant what was here.
No.
No, I agree, this is public, but there's new data now on DF Richard.
Mr. Brown, are you taking questions from the floor?
Yes, John?
John Tappan, 187 Stepping Stone Road. I have a question which may be for the town administrator. In this bidding process, how do you take account of what you think might be differences in reliability, or which is what was mentioned in this case?
Mhm.
that you think things may not be quite equal.
Well, we have.
Just how does that, should that process work?
Right, and relative to the heating oil, I think we've always used Hartman ever since I've been here. Was it somebody else? It might have been Hanscom's.
Yeah, Hanscom and
Like
Bouchard had it.
5 or 6 years ago. So I really can't answer the question as to, how unreliable is unreliable?
Really, how should that be handled in the bidding process? And it seems like one of the ways might be
Right,
that if you think a particular vendor is not reliable, then maybe you just don't even allow them to bid.
that's true,
But if you're gonna allow them to
Right.
bid,
right.
is there any mechanism where you say, well, yeah, the difference is $10,000, so for that, we'll go with it, even though,
Yeah, that would be subjective,
how is it supposed to work?
and I don't know.
That's
I
what I'm
mean,
asking.
and equally subjective is that while it's not a good thing for a building to run out of fuel, is that a reason to reject them completely out of hand? I mean, they've been supplying fuel for years.
But they have run out other years too. Now, to answer your question, for many years, the price from Hartman for diesel was lower than the price from Hanscom. But the town chose Hanscom because Hanscom would anticipate a weather disturbance and come and fill Randy's tanks up, top them off without being called or anything. So he went into a storm full.
Right.
And so Randy preferred that, and the town paid a higher price for that.
Incremental,
Yeah, it was incremental, it was
it was
pennies,
incremental,
but it wasn't zero.
right. But we paid the bid price. We didn't pay a different price. We paid the price that was bid.
Just observing this, it just seems like the possibility of going around and asking this one to do,
Right.
what is it, that just, I agree, sounds
Right.
terrible.
Not supposed to do that.
But then it also seems like there ought to be, and it was mentioned that perhaps there is some mechanism where
Mhm.
if in some way the bids or the service is not considered equal,
Yeah.
apparently that was done in the past. So just as an observer, I'm just asking, how should that probably be handled then?
But if this vendor has been providing us for years,
Right.
was this the first incident we had where we ran out of fuel, or is it something that,
Like I said, I know there were a couple of times this year.
right?
I don't recall that it has been, if it has been an issue in the past, A, I don't recall it, and B, none of the department heads have said to me in the past or this year, don't use Hartman, don't, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the other thing, you can't do one strike and you're out.
Well, it has been other years that this has occurred, and in fact, when I called the fire department today to get whatever data I could, I was told, not by the chief, but by the person that I talked to, that on average, it's 2 times a year. And it's been that way. It doesn't just happen once. And the transfer station does not use heating oil, so they've not had any shortages. Randy does for his buildings. I don't know if he's had shortages or not.
Okay.
yeah, I asked him today, and he said no, he hasn't, so.
So what do you tell these people that we're gonna rebid this? They're gonna say, why are you rebidding it?
Well,
How do you
we
know
don't
that?
have to give a reason.
Yeah, I assume.
We can
so.
reject all bids.
Mhm.
I don't know, so we just reject all the bids and do it again. I just
So
don't
we
know, I just don't know whether we're gonna get a different
Well,
result.
that's what I'm asking. We'll probably get the same result, and then we're just hedging ourselves at this point. So it's uncomfortable for me.
I mean, certainly, let's just suppose we went with Hartman
Mhm.
and told them, look, there's concerns, there's been some issues in the past where a building has run out. If it happens once,
Mhm.
we're not gonna use you. We'll cancel the contract and use somebody else. I mean, in this case, the somebody else is considerably more money with the diesel
Yes, that's true.
and more money with the heating oil. So, but, I mean, that's certainly something, if we were to award it to Hartman, that we can tell them in writing.
But also realize that with propane, the dealer generally owns the tanks, which it does with the town tanks and the school tanks. So if you say, we're done with you, then you're not done until the tanks have been swapped out either economically by the one dealer buying them from the other dealer, which sometimes happens, but not always, or physically they get transferred out.
True.
So that, it's not like oil where you own the tank and anybody can won't put oil in it.
What do we, in terms of the propane tanks that we have,
You have 3 120s and a 1,000.
which is for this building, right?
This building
Yeah.
is a 120, but that's because you heat this building with oil, and when they expanded into this floor, instead of extending the heating system into this floor that was fired by oil, they put a separate one in that's fired by gas, which I didn't know about until it was all over. It was,
Yep. Well, my concern is if we break the partnership that we have with the other institutions, we're getting a way cheaper price because of the amount that the school uses.
We are making that assumption.
So, well, I think we can pretty
We're
much
just-
assure
we're
that
making that
because
assumption.
if I'm selling something, I'm selling you 6,000 and I can
Yeah.
sell 60,000, I'm gonna give you a break on that, most likely. So I would like us to just reject all these and go out to bid again. So I move that we reject all the bids for the fuel and that we go out to bid for these particular 3 products again.
would you consider on the propane,
We have
I
a
don't
motion-
think-
we have a motion on.
We got a
on the
process we gotta follow.
I second that.
I'm gonna vote against it, so I'll tell you right now, because I don't think it's proper to play one against the other and keep rebidding, so we might not like this thing and do for a 3rd bid once we get more inside information. I just think we're going in a death spiral.
Okay, motion carried.
But ask for the vote.
I'm sorry?
Ask for the vote.
Okay, we have a vote by roll call. Scott?
Yes.
John?
No.
Brown? Carrie Brown? Yes.
Could I ask the town administrator, with your gentleman's approval, when we go out to bid, can you also ask in terms of what the price would be if it's not this particular volume? So specifically, I understand the school and the church are going to do DF Richard for propane no matter what.
Right,
I would like to know what the price would be for the amount that we use,
yeah.
so that we can effectively figure out what that is.
To a
Yeah.
point.
Because if they're charging us, well, right at the moment, the last delivery was, what, 145.5. If they tell us it's gonna be 209 because that
Exactly.
volume, that's cheaper for us in the long run, because we're getting the volume. So for me, their price per gallon might be cheaper, but overall, our costs are gonna be cheaper going with the DF Richard. So I guess if you can ask that particular
Yeah.
question for each one, and let's, I guess, just do them for all 3.
Right.
yeah, I think you'd have
It's a
a
good idea.
individual line item, how much for each one of these by itself, if it didn't include the others, and how much for the whole.
Because then we can find out what that discount is.
Right, we do say in the bid, you know, all quantities are estimates, and we reserve the right to purchase some, all, or none of what we say, and blah, blah, blah. So, we
Well,
do.
at least I would, if I was a vendor, I'd feel like, okay, well, I went out to bid.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
expecting 63.
Yep,
Approximately, if you tell me, oh, I'm only buying 6,000,
yep,
I'm gonna do that at my house. I'm gonna say, oh, yeah, I want 100,000 gallons. Oh, geez, I'm only gonna
I
buy
changed my
1,000 this
mind.
year. Yeah, I don't think that's gonna go over well.
okay.
So
Yep,
if you can include that in terms of asking what specifically the town uses on those 3.
yep,
Yeah, we have all that document, that's all part of the bid, actually, showing how much every building.
Well, we don't specifically ask for what the
For
cost
the
would be.
pricing, that's correct, but the volume is broken down,
So-
so tanks and all that.
I would also offer, if the town administrator wanted to say that reject all the bids because we want this further information. It's up to you, you're the one that
we're
deals with
just, we're just rejecting them.
it. Okay.
Yeah, it's probably straightforward. Don't give reasons.
Right. All right,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, can I ask?
So that was
when does-
A.
That was A.
Okay, that was A.
Oh, you gotta be
When
kidding.
does,
So we got B, C, D, E, F, G,
Okay,
that's
H
all right.
to go.
when does our current contract end for all these services?
End of month.
Ends June 30th, but it extends until we take a
Okay.
new contractor.
Okay.
Okay.
And you're not likely to get propane delivery now anyway, because
No.
it's a heating season, heating oil. Diesel's another story. Remember, that was another thing, that Hanscom would carry the old price way in, because sometimes the bidding didn't finish until August. And they just kept delivering like it was gonna happen. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
As you may recall, we had a warrant article 2 meetings ago to rebuild fire ponds on Tamarack Road and James Farm Road, and I gather for a variety of reasons. I think the fire chief looked at it and determined that he really needed to get the assistance of a civil engineer, and by the time all the plans got together, anyway, here we are, it's June, and we're just now getting ready to put the bid out on James Farm Road. Turns out the fire pond is not on town-owned land at Tamarack.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of extra steps we're gonna have to take, so we may put 2 different bids out. In any event, I am asking that the board encumber the funds so that we can do this project in fiscal 19.
Okay, so I'd like to enter a motion. Move to encumber $62,340 from an FY18 appropriation for the James Farm and Tamarack Fire Pond projects. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
No, I'm all set. Thank
I'm
you.
all set, thank you.
Do we need to do a vote?
Yes.
Yes.
We just need to do a
Roll call vote. Selectman Bugby?
Yes.
Selectman LaCourse?
Yes.
Selectman Brown, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you. The
This is excellent.
transfer station manager, I guess applied for, and received a grant, presumably to assist with the purchase of the open and closed containers, which were purchased some time ago. And the funds came out of the Capital Reserve Fund, as we learned somewhat recently from our auditors. We cannot take this grant and put it into the Capital Reserve Fund, so. But we certainly can take the money and put it into the general fund. So we are looking to accept the grant from New Hampshire the Beautiful.
Could he apply for this himself? How is this
Well,
possible?
I don't know.
Can
All
you,
I know is this was handed to me.
can you find out for us, please?
Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I wonder if it's possible, I mean, would they have just known about we were buying the cans and just given us this?
It's rather nice.
All I know is that I got the letter and I said, well, this is something that the select board needs to approve.
Can you find out for us and let us know that?
Yeah,
Thank
yeah.
you. Thanks.
Do we want to go ahead with the motion?
Oh, yeah. Let's do it. Let's get the money.
Take the money.
It's money.
Want to enter a motion, a move to accept $3,110 from New Hampshire the Beautiful, Inc.
Second.
Do I hear a second? Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
Discussion,
No discussion.
What's that?
vote. Scott?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Carrie, yes. Selectman Brown, yes. Thank you. Motion carries.
Bingo.
Thank you. Just looking for approval of the Solid Waste Advisory Committee charge. We had discussed it
Yes.
at the last meeting, and Selectman LaCourse asked for some language change relative to the swap shop.
And that's acceptable. Thank you.
Okay, so we're good with this.
Is there any way to tell them, and I'm not sure if we can, but in terms of prioritizing these things, because we've got 8 items,
Yep.
I was kind of looking for them to do number 3 as soon as possible, number 3 and number 2.
Sure.
So-
We have one person that's indicated an interest in serving
Okay.
on this committee.
Okay.
Um,
Because really, 2 is kind of, he's proposed some increases, and I'd like to have some group go through and look at those in relation to other.
Yeah.
So I hate for us to give them this and they say, well, geez, think we should do number 7, or it's number 8 first. I don't,
I think what we can do is put as part of the minutes that, instead of
Yeah.
trying to rearrange everything again, just say that gives the chairman and the committee gives them autonomy to some extent.
yeah,
But, through the minutes and maybe, say that we would prefer that you would consider these issues first.
Right.
Okay.
So number 3 and number 2.
yeah, I'm looking for number 3 and number 2.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Okay, well, hopefully some more people will express an interest.
Okay, all right. Other than that, I'm good with it.
All right, thank you.
Do we need to vote on that, or it's good the way it is?
Yeah, no, we're
Okay.
good. I don't know why this is sitting here, sorry.
Do we have to sign it? Make it legal?
No, I just made a note that the select board approved it on this date.
Okay, good.
All right. The crushed glass is just something, actually, that I've been talking with Bill Booth and Toby Van Aken about. And you saw, I think, the information that I put in the agenda packet. So we're currently paying $30 a ton to dispose of it, as opposed to $70+ a ton, so that's good. And I was encouraged to see that the glass is being put to good use. So in other words,
Yes.
it's not, for us anyway, I know other towns, you've seen in the paper recently that it's just ending up in the landfill, which is terrible. And this might be something, if we get this committee up and running, whether we ever want to consider keeping the crushed glass, or whether we can even crush the glass on site and then either use it for our municipal facilities project, which quite frankly, I think would be kind of cool.
Yes.
Or make it available to contractors to use and therefore save ourselves the $30 disposal a ton. So that's really just informational.
I thought it was neat.
I thought it was very neat.
It's very good.
Yeah, when I did my garage, I tried to get my contractor to use it.
Yeah.
He was uncomfortable with it, because I had 503 yards
Yeah.
of sand brought in from
Right.
Newmarket. And of course, there's a trucking fee.
Yeah,
Yes.
But Toby didn't have 500, he had less, but
right.
at least he could have used some of it, but my contractor was
Well,
uncomfortable.
this has been done since at least the 90s, because when I started looking into this, I'm like, they've been doing this a long time, and I think it's in New Zealand. They actually crush it down to sand and put it on the beaches.
Yeah.
So
That's
it-
what it is.
It's
I,
what it is.
I think it's just a matter of educating
Yeah,
contractors
sure.
and
Well,
pointing
that-
them in the direction.
Yeah, that's part of number 8 in here, in
Right,
terms of
right.
maybe they can
Yeah.
contact construction people
Yeah.
in the area and just say, hey,
Yeah.
Town of Lee has all this,
Right,
Exactly.
you can have it, and you just come and haul it away yourself, and you can have it for free.
right,
Because it's a cost mitigation
yeah,
for us, so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah. Trash at Little River Park, I think you saw at least one picture, there's been some issues. Certainly
Yeah, I
we've
saw that.
spoken with ORYA, and I guess they're gonna be more diligent about getting the people that use the facilities to watch the trash. According to a policy, though, adopted by the select board, Little River Park is a carry-in, carry-out facility.
Right.
The highway supervisor, in recognition of the fact that a lot of people don't do that, put the trash barrels down there. So I'm just circling back to the select board to see whether you want to continue keeping the trash barrels at Little River Park, which then have to be emptied by our highway department. I mean, we do, when outside groups use Little River Park, in other words, not ORYA and not the school, we are paid for the use of the facilities. So, maybe one way of making it look a little more palatable as well, we do get something, so the fact that it costs us to take the trash away. On the other hand, there's a lot of people that use the park that don't pay to use the park. And I just, I did a lot of hiking and camping when I was a kid. That was every single vacation my family did. Because basically we didn't have money to stay in hotels. There were 7 of us. But I remember my father saying, getting so angry at people, you carried it in full, there's no reason you can't carry it out empty. And my personal view is the same. You brought it all in, you can bring it all back with you. But
Well, that's nice, except they're not.
I know, I know.
Well, I mean, that's the issue, is they're
I know.
not. They're throwing it, you know, they're stacking it up, they're throwing it, they're leaving it on benches and tabletops and
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else.
If you think about it, if you're from the other side of the fence,
Mm.
if you're putting out garbage containers,
Right.
I'm assuming you're gonna
Yes.
take care of it.
Yes.
So we're
Yes.
setting.
No, I agree.
ourselves up.
That's
I
it.
agree.
Yeah.
So I'm just circling back to the board to see whether you have any thoughts on what you want to do about it. Do you want to keep the trash barrels out there?
I'd rather not, because we've talked about this initially, a
Mhm.
while back, about whether we should do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can drive and clean my car and throw the junk inside the trash can, I'm just cleaning out the junk in the car. Yeah, well, these things do happen.
Yeah.
I don't wanna put
Yeah.
extra burden on our staff that already has a lot to do. We don't have extra people.
Well, the other thing is, if you take the trash cans away, what's gonna happen to the trash? People are gonna take it out, or they're just
Exactly.
gonna leave it there, which then it blows all over the place, and,
Well, does that become
well, then you have to monitor the facility, how you're gonna catch these people. So
that's the issue.
this is a slippery slope for
It's a
those
slip,
people.
right? If we put a sign out there, it's what you carry in, you carry out.
Well, I think we should go with the sign, but I don't think you can take away the trash barrels. I think you have to have some kind of receptacles out there that, you know, people have a couple Coke cans or whatever, that they can just toss them in there. I don't know.
Problem is, they're not tossing them in there, are they?
Well, I don't know, you know, it's, you're kind of darned if you do and darned if you don't, I guess. It's just a matter of what's the preferred worst case.
So when Roger was here, Roger would check that periodically. Is Randy doing that? So Randy's doing it now instead of
Yeah.
Roger.
Randy's doing it and Larry Kinberg's been doing it.
So maybe we ask,
Well, I know Larry, I don't know how often Mr. Kinberg does it, but I know Randy does it on a regular basis.
so maybe that should be something the transfer station people do on a periodic basis instead of Randy.
No, that's true too. That's probably where it
Transfer
belongs.
station, well,
Yeah, you're right, that's a good thought.
because the possibility exists, and he's gonna kill me for suggesting this, that one of the transfer station people, before they show up at work, go down and see if there's trash. If there's too much trash, take it, bag it up, and they're going right to the transfer station and just dump it in the hopper, so. I'd rather have them do that than not put the trash things out there and have the stuff flying all
I
over the
would
place.
too.
And
I would too.
How many cans are out there?
I don't know.
I don't know. There's
Well,
I
there
know there's at
was
least
2 at the pavilion, and then there's one over by the,
three.
By the,
So there's 3 that I can think of off
Yeah.
the top of my head.
and then when we have activities, they put out.
Of
more
course,
courses.
that's a different story, yeah.
So would you like me to speak with Mr. Van Aiken?
I just suggested he's gonna kill me, but, you know, I'll take the heat.
You'll
but-
take the, yeah, this-
I'm just thinking it would be
Well-
logistically better than Randy.
Well, it
did
is.
it, so.
Parks and
The issue-
Recreation.
The issue with that is, it could be Mr. Van Aiken doing it, but do the part-time people work on days other than Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays?
I don't know, we have a manager at the transfer station that can
Okay.
deal with it.
I can talk to him.
Maybe that's part of their work schedule that, you know, Tuesdays Chip does it, and
Mhm.
Thursdays, I don't know. And I suspect they don't have to do it every single day, maybe once a week or something like that.
That park is
I don't know.
pretty heavily used.
It
this
is,
time of year.
absolutely, it's a lot of people down there.
I don't know how much trash is generated, there,
Right.
so I don't know.
Right.
So maybe Randy can tell them, you have to
Yeah.
check at least twice a week, I
Yeah.
don't know. But have Toby, you know.
I mean, we can certainly try to tell ORYA, the school,
Mhm.
and the other people that are using the fields, yeah, there's trash cans there, those are not for you.
That's right.
Take your trash with you. If you want to keep using our fields,
Mhm.
you take your trash with you.
And we need to try to separate it out a little bit. They need to take responsibility, otherwise people get sloppy.
Well, them, how about the parents that come for the games? You have an announcement at the beginning of every game, you brought it in, you take it back. So,
Listen,
Trash cans are limited. You bring it in, you bring it back.
liberty to use trash.
Limited trash usage.
well, I certainly would have no problem, I mean, sending them a letter saying, look,
right, it's
you
a
know,
problem.
we're having an issue with
Right.
trash, and we expect that when
Right,
the last thing the team does before they leave is walk around the field,
Sure.
pick up the trash and take it with them.
Mhm.
It's good.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You need a sign out there that says, you know, you carry it in, you carry it
I
out.
agree.
But if it's absolutely necessary,
Yeah.
the minimum throw is possible. Oh, brother, we're going downhill.
I received a request from Andy Gazowski, Chair of the Library Trustees. There's a volunteer at the library working on the gardens. The railroad ties around the big bed on the left of the ramp are in bad condition and could possibly harbor wasp and hornet nests. I don't know whether that means they've seen the wasp and hornets. We would like to remove them, presumably the railroad ties and not the wasps, although both would be good, and replace with foundation stones donated by the Stevens family. Please ask the select board for permission to make this change. Let me know.
Foundation stones.
Like,
I don't know.
is it what the ties are resting on, is the foundation, is that what she's
No,
talking?
she wants to bring
No,
in
she wants
foundation
to
stone.
get rid of the railroad ties.
Yeah.
And put in
Bring
foundation
in
stone?
Yes.
How big are the stones? I don't.
I don't know.
Actually, I think, I understand the railroad ties do brought out
Right.
ants and everything. They probably should get rid of them. There's no question about it.
But how
Well, are
big
they
the
really
stones?
railroad ties or are they landscaping?
They're landscape.
They landscaping.
Yeah.
When I was a kid,
No.
that's the theme of this evening. When I was a kid, we had real railroad ties. We
No,
used to
these
get
are
our
the-
hands filled with splinters playing on it and the creosote.
The creosote, yes, the creosote.
Awesome.
No, I bet you these are just landscape.
Well, they're going to remove the ties and they're going to have the,
They say they have a volunteer to do this,
I would want to know how big the stones are and how much they're gonna be protruded above the ground.
so you want me to, you want the answer before you say yes? That's fine, I'm just.
I would like to know, because if they're gonna put in these big honking stones, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, foundation stones is like the stones will be taking out of the parsonage when it gets removed. Right? Those are foundation stones.
yeah, those are big.
Those are big granite stones. Right.
And if they're talking about foundation stones that are in the, what's that house down on Lee Hook Road? The Reuben
Reuben
Hill.
Hill.
Reuben Hill,
Yeah.
those things are massive. They're like,
well, did you see
Like
the
2
ones
feet?
they pulled out of the Cartland
oh,
the
yeah.
schoolhouse? Look at those pretty significant, so
So I don't know how big they are.
All right, I will ask
let's get for
for more information. All right.
Let's put it this, we're enthusiastic, but we need to know more. So,
The buyer for the Veterans Resort Chapel requires 15 more days because they're working out the details of the title insurance. So our attorney said, yes, you can have 15 more days. And this was based on the pre-sale conversation. So, but they are still eager to buy it and moving forward.
Did you notice Mr. McDonald's, you must have, the letter that he
I
sent us?
did. Yeah.
So does our attorney have any comments on those particular?
No.
Okay.
Nor when we looked this morning, did we see a listing for the property.
Okay.
So
Alright.
everything is still moving forward.
good.
Knock on wood.
And then this last one, you may recall that I pushed kind of last minute during the last budget process to put money in the budget for scanning assessing documents. Due to various things, I just didn't get around to putting a bid together, and we've run out of time to put a bid together.
But you put out a lot of other bids.
But I put out a lot of other bids. So we can either just let the money go into surplus, put it back in the budget, or ask to put it back in the budget during the next process. I mean, we could just sign a contract with Rico, which had given us a proposal. I'd rather put an RFP out. And then quite frankly, this really does give us more time to work more closely with the Heritage Commission to make sure that they're gonna be comfortable, and then of course it's up to the board, but the board, I think, leans heavily on the Heritage Commission when it comes to this, whether they're really going to be comfortable letting the paper go. Because if we can't ultimately get rid of the paper, I don't know at this time whether we want to spend upwards of $30,000 scanning and maintaining the information in the plaque. So,
How about if we encumber the funds, and that'll give us another year?
we can't,
Why not?
we can only encumber the funds if we have a contract.
So,
Well, that means then you don't have access to any money until you put it in the budget for
next year.
2020.
Yeah,
There's nothing else, no other way,
No other way, I think we should just
No.
let it go.
because we really, really, really need to get this thing going somehow.
yeah,
Right. All right.
so.
Let it go.
Let it slide.
Ooh, our fund balance just
Now-
went up by $30,000.
There you go.
20, 25, 30, yeah.
No.
So, I think that's everything. Thank you.
Oh. Yes. So we are on number 8. Look at that. Want to enter a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented to include, if you look at I, to include minutes from, I think it should be 6/18/2018, shouldn't it?
No, it's June 4th and June 11th.
And June 11th, we had a meeting on both within a week?
We
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
Second.
No discussion.
Any discussion?
No, sir.
Okay.
All right. I'm also passing down,
You know about it?
We can?
so all in,
We can.
all in favor?
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
I'm also
Motion carries, yes.
passing down the, an agreement that the board agreed to in a previous non-public session relative to a tax payment agreement.
Oh.
I'm sorry, what is this?
Tax payment agreement.
Tax payment agreement. You want to read it? Sure.
There's a lot of signing tonight.
Hmm?
There's a lot of signing tonight. Just leave that there, and when she comes in, we'll just,
Is she actually coming?
no.
Oh,
Well, eventually.
oh, not here, not tonight, but. And you know this, item number 6, John, it's all because Mr. Brown could not find a notary public, which I told him I was, so he could come over and visit me, but.
Well, how would one know? I don't see a shingle hanging out anywhere.
Do I need a shingle?
Well, either that or a tattoo on your wrist. How are
Okay.
people supposed
I
to
will
know?
tell you, there is a very
Oh.
large demand for that service. There are people coming in every
I
day,
imagine there is.
every day to get documents notarized.
Well, if it's off hours and the town hall isn't open, give me a call.
There you go.
You can stop by, I'm usually available sometimes.
Usually.
Well, except if I'm-
I would have been glad to call you. All I'm saying is, you know, how do you know
Yeah, I know.
if you don't have a shingle out
Well,
or advertise
At
or something?
UNH has a list of people that do notary services for UNH, and I was on that list until I was no longer employed.
I'm
there.
sorry,
There you go.
I'm sorry, say that again.
At UNH is a list of notaries, so you can contact any of them. So when I worked there, my name was on that list. So maybe on the town website, we put in who does notary stuff.
I
All
think,
hours. I can't marry you,
I have
so
no way of knowing.
I'm not justice of the peace.
The only way we found out is we called somebody there in our neighborhood, and they knew a lawyer who was this fellow.
Yeah.
And he said, sure, come on over and I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
I said, wow, that'd have been buggy, probably
Well, in the
charged
future-
50 bucks.
Well, usually I don't charge, but if Mr. Brown's coming over, I probably do something. So I have to recoup all these.
It's costing you the long run, isn't it?
You know, we don't advertise it.
That's
just
on the
assume.
website, I think it is.
Really?
I think so. I think so.
Because it's,
One of
the
the
volume
things-
has picked up, and we started wondering whether there was a billboard somewhere that we were not aware of.
Somebody asked me a while ago
Yeah.
and I said, you can usually go to the town hall. That wasn't me, but for all of them, I don't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
You know, so.
I don't know.
There was the other thing in terms of, in reference to number 6, what he's signing, there is a interest group on Facebook. It's called Lee Neighborhood. A lot of
Yeah.
information going back and forth. And one of the ladies asked, where is a good place to get copies done? And I said, go to the library. And actually, the library does have a thing in there that says how much it costs, but it's buried. No one will ever find it. If you go there, there's a sign. So I spoke up and said, you know, you can go to the library and get them done for, you know, whatever it was. I don't remember what it was, but-
Oh, that Lee neighborhood on that Facebook is pretty good, actually.
Oh, don't put your pen away.
Oh,
There's lots more.
lots more?
Yeah.
It's gotta be a better way.
Can't be anything for me to say.
Nothing?
Say what?
Is it just him?
It doesn't look like it is.
No, you gotta sign one of
Pick
these.
line, John, just pick a line.
No, it's just him.
title. Yeah,
It's
it's
just
just
him.
title, yeah, I thought so. Unless there's something back here.
Oh, wait a minute, on the backside. Yeah, it's just him.
Yeah, let me check and make sure. Or is this another?
Oh, yeah, that probably, the health trust is probably all just the chairman.
Yep, that was.
Yeah, that looks like that. Yeah.
So, in terms of there's only 4 people utilizing their services for the 4 accounts, what is that called?
I'm not sure what
The,
topic we're talking about.
in terms of the health trust, that's where they can use like
Oh, the
flexible
FSA,
spending.
yeah, but more people have signed up for fiscal 19
Oh, excellent, excellent.
because we
Yep,
talked to people and tried to convince them that
yep,
it's really a good idea.
yep.
I actually upped the amount of money.
Because he wrote it in the wrong place, that's denied.
Yeah.
You should really
What
cross
did I
that
do?
out.
What did I do?
That's a denied.
Well, that's why I put the 2 arrows. So, okay.
Can we just cross that
Yeah,
out?
yeah, yeah.
All right, so just going for that.
Yep, yep.
I was gonna say there's something that's unique about that one. 2 signatures.
Have the Tappins fallen asleep yet? So
Part
late.
of us has.
Half of us has?
Part of us.
Sorry, he said.
Part of us has.
There's a couple of good thunders out there a while back, huh?
Yeah.
That was kinda neat.
Yeah, I thought it was gonna be worse than that when they showed it on TV.
There's, I said, there's a lot to be signed tonight. Just imagine how we all feel. We have to process all this paperwork.
Yep.
Oh, and Mr. Brown, you get paid this week again. Woo! Yep.
What are you talking about?
He doesn't know. You get paid this week.
You get that little check, right? It comes in the mail.
Yeah.
At least mine comes in the mail. Look at this.
They pay you too?
Yeah, I don't know how it happens.
I picked mine up, so I saved the town 47 cents, whatever it is.
That's good. I can get some more stuff for my Corvette.
Here you go, a little this, a little that, right?
I know.
I expected a bigger crowd here tonight.
I did too, yeah. Kind of thinned out.
It thinned out real quick.
Well, that's what the three people over there for. Better off guard.
Yeah.
You know, I went and looked at that tree in the park that got
Oh, yep,
vandalized.
yep.
Oh, yep, yep.
It's kind of odd. It looks like it was done by a surgeon.
Really?
Really, that bark was stripped off of that tree, perfect circle around the top where they lifted the bark up to that circle. Or somebody did. Either that or was a beaver carrying a knife. I mean, it was just like an operation.
Wow.
Why
What
would
tree is
someone
that?
do that?
What tree is that?
Tree at Little River Park,
Little
someone
River
stripped all
Park.
the bark off.
One of the trees that was
It's
planted?
one of the trees that was planted. They also ripped up one of the
Irrigation lines.
irrigation line.
That's too bad.
But to me, this is just to me, it looked like they stripped that bark off for a purpose. Well, I don't know, like they wanted to use it for a piece of art or this or that, because it's so perfectly clean from the bottom of the tree all the way up to the top.
So it's just on what, it's not circling it.
Yeah, but it's all of it.
Oh,
We're
all
gonna
of it,
lose
so the
it.
tree's gonna die.
We're gonna
Yeah.
lose it.
Oh, yeah.
That's too bad.
So I don't know if the tree will survive without bark or not. It won't.
No.
Uh,
No, it will not
It'll be
survive.
diseased.
It already looks like the leaves are turning on it, turning yellow.
You said one of the ones that Pawtuckaway put in?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Pawtuckaway plant nursery put in?
Yeah.
What do you got?
That's it,
That's it.
that's it.
Any further discussion that the board would like to have?
Well, At the beginning of the meeting, I only had one item for number 9, but since it took so long to sign all those things, now I have 5.
What?
So, people are laughing. The TCVC has a forest walk this Friday at 9 a.m.
9 to 10.
Did you say
The
forest walk?
Yes, we're walking the forest between the town center and the church to identify trees and
It's,
to,
Don Quigley is going to lead us, and it's to learn what kind of trees are there, what value they might have, how old they are, when was the last time that area was cleared,
Is there anything notable?
are there any particularly valuable or particularly notable trees?
When is it? I'm sorry?
9 o'clock
It's-
this Friday.
Yes.
9 o'clock this Friday.
And I have been courteous in terms of letting the church know. So I figured, I'd just let them know. Well, there's a whole contingent from the church coming too, so it'll be a large
Okay.
group. Anything from the survey people yet? Are we still on?
No, I mean, they said end of June, so.
Okay, that's getting close. All right. I assume, this is just an assumption, and when you assume, salaries for FY19 already loaded into the accounting software, so we're good with that. Survey, design firm, I forwarded the answers from the
I saw
TCVC to the
that,
design
yeah.
firm today, so the
Yeah.
town administrator put those out, so just an FYI for that. The last topic, which is the one that was on my list to begin with, was, as we all know, Mr. Stevens is retiring. I've been approached by numerous people. I know the Conservation Commission is collecting for a gift from them to him. People have been saying, what is the town doing for Mr. Stevens after his long tenure in service to the town? And I said, well, we haven't talked about it. So I think we should have a conversation about it. Also, in terms of people who've been saying, I would like to donate something if you're doing something. How do we go about that? And I know town receiving money is something that's problematic, so how can we handle that? But I think the first question is, what is the town gonna do?
I was gonna say, first we need to.
Well, there's an event
Yes.
being planned. And actually, I was to query the board as to how much money, if any, the board is comfortable contributing towards that.
The event.
The event.
Yes, the event,
Not a
correct,
gift.
the event.
Okay. How much is the cost of the event?
That, I don't know, the person, I don't think knows that's organizing it. My understanding is that it's going to be an open house, like we did for,
So it's just like light refreshments?
yes,
Okay.
yes,
Where's it gonna be? At the town
the
hall?
Grange,
Range.
I'm sorry?
at the Grange.
Oh, at the Grange, oh, okay.
Well, and
I don't know what the cost is gonna be. There's
I
gonna be
mean,
a,
it's,
I don't know.
there's gonna be a charge to rent the hall.
I mean, it's dinner
Is that like
or it's?
$100?
It's not, yeah,
Yeah.
probably that. Well, it depends on who you are. Sometimes it's 75. Depends on who you are.
Oh, gosh.
Well, an outside group that has nothing to do with the town gets charged more than, like, I think the town gets a cheaper rate, but I don't hold me to that. But there's a different, as far as I know.
Did we, you probably should do some kind of plaque or something that he can.
Well, we did talk about
Yeah,
this.
like we did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We did talk about this.
Yes. And we won't talk about it anymore.
We're not gonna talk about that.
Well, part of it, because it's probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, we should probably do something in terms of commemorating,
Mhm.
you know, his service. So I don't know if we want to, get him some kind of a gift, something, other people when they retire, they get gold watches. He's not a gold watch type guy, I don't think.
No, that's it with it.
So, like the Conservation Commission, I don't know, is this public in terms of what you're doing or not?
I don't know.
Okay, I won't say what they're doing then. But they're doing something that they know he will use. It's a
Usable item.
Yes.
Okay, so they're not gonna, we don't know what it is, you know what it is, obviously.
Well, she knows what it is too.
She
so-
knows what it is, and you know what it is.
But if it's not public, I don't want to reveal that confidence.
I see. Okay,
So, but also people have been asking, like the previous town administrator, Lynn Gothier, she's gonna be here for the event and she wants to donate something. She's
Oh,
gonna bring
really?
him a little gift anyways, but she wants to donate something. There's probably been 5 or 6 other people that have emailed me or talked to me
Well-
to say, is the town accepting donations? How can I give something to?
Perhaps the Conservation Commission, because we already know that they're doing something anyway, would be willing to be the recipient of those funds because the conservation money can take donated
It's-
gifts
I-
easily.
I'm thinking other groups, like I know the ag people are doing something.
Oh,
And I think the Heritage people are gonna talk about it this Thursday, so they're gonna do something, so. But Heritage and Conservation can both accept
right,
funds.
right.
So maybe one of those groups steps up and becomes the recipient and then,
Mhm.
but that gets back to the question, what is the town doing?
I know,
And are we
it's a hard
doing for
one.
the party?
Other than what we already
I was gonna
discussed.
say that we have the one thing that we've discussed.
Yes.
Understand? Understand.
Nothing shady. It's just a surprise.
But I mean, what has to be done to bring that to fruition, and it's done?
Well,
Yeah,
In terms of
the,
which,
the town secretary and I are working on that.
yep, so
Okay.
that's in hand. But in terms of, are we donating anything to the Grange party?
I don't
That
know.
was her question.
Well, to offset the cost, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, then we should do it. So where could we take the funds out of?
Well, there's a
Someone-
line for that. So
Yes.
plus
There
it's
is,
next
it
fiscal
doesn't
year.
say, there's actually it's not coal parties.
It's
but-
flowers and.
Yeah, it's
Flowers and
flowers and
flag
gifts and
gifts and that
something,
kind of stuff.
something. So we usually take it out of that.
So it's his next fiscal year as well. It's in,
Do we have dates for all these things that are happening?
well, we have it for the,
We have it for the event at the Grange.
which I
Okay.
think is,
No, I think he knows about that.
oh, they knows, okay.
Yeah.
I would assume he had to know
Yeah.
about it because you gotta make sure he shows up.
Well, his wife is gonna do that.
Oh, okay,
Right.
good, I'm glad that's being taken care of.
But yeah, so in terms of cost, if we're just doing light refreshments, if that's,
Mhm.
so I would move that we donate up to $200 to cover the expense of that. If it's less,
Mhm.
we'll just pay for the whole thing. If it's more,
Yeah,
I would think $200 would cover,
This is the Grange thing?
yeah, Grange,
Yeah, yeah, I would second that, absolutely.
So $200,
up to $200.
up to $200 is, and how many people are gonna attend this?
I
Mhm.
have no idea. If they're just doing light refreshments, even if 100 people show up, it's not gonna cost $200.
No, I understand, it seems kind of.
Depends what kind of light
Seems kind
refreshments
of
it is.
vulgar to me. I mean, but I don't know, if you don't know what
Well,
they're
what kind
gonna
of refreshments
do.
are you gonna have?
Well, I mean, I don't know, it's, you know, what do they have in mind?
Champagne cocktails or something?
Champagne cocktails, scallops and bacon?
Yeah,
What
yeah.
are you thinking?
Well, what am I thinking? Well, if it's just gonna be punch, I'm thinking more than that.
Well, $200? It'll buy you an awful lot of, I don't know,
Well,
Well,
what-
was it, the cake costs,
Golly.
60, 70.
I was gonna say at least 50.
For the cake, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it depends on how many people show up.
Yeah,
You can only hold a little under, 100 in the Grange, so
Yeah, but it's being designed as an open house, so
people come and
you people will
go.
come and go.
$300 then.
all right, we'll see. Let's see if they have something in mind as far as, are they gonna serve appetizers, or is it just gonna be?
Who's gonna serve it?
Huh?
Who's
Well, there's
serving?
people,
Well, I mean, you know, you set them out in a pan with a little flame underneath, something, you know.
We really know what we're talking about.
I guess.
You know, are you gonna
Karen's
have
the one
hors
who's doing this,
d'oeuvres?
Does she need to know right now?
We're struggling.
So,
I mean, it's a month away.
all right, who seconded that one?
I second that.
Will you withdraw your second?
Depends what the reason why.
I'm gonna change the number.
Okay, go ahead, I withdraw.
All right, I withdraw my motion as well. I would like to make a motion that we spend up to $300 for the party at the Grange on the 27th of July. How about that?
Go ahead and second it.
Second. There you go. You feel better?
Yeah.
And I guess I would say, if this passes, contact Karen and say, do you think this is enough? If not, we can change
You
it.
can always change it next time.
No other information,
Yeah, I agree.
and if she can't do it for $300, I can put on a barbecue for 80 people for less than $300.
I always used to spend
What is
$600
it
or
you're gonna
$800
cook?
when I did that.
What?
Huh? You're gonna do a barbecue for 300, for three, how
I
many
used to
people?
do it at the TV station.
You gotta know what you're doing.
$80, yep. I was frugal.
Okay, are we
Frugal, is that the
calling
word
vote
you
on this?
said?
We're on discussion. We're
We're
discussing.
still discussing it.
I'm done discussing.
Nobody asked me if I wanted to discuss it, I just discussed it.
Oh,
I call the motion, I call the vote.
yes,
Go ahead.
you did.
I just did, I
It's
called
called
it.
motion. You have to have a vote now.
What are we voting on?
The $300.
$300.
The $300?
For
Yes.
Randy S. Stevens.
All in
And
favor?
all in favor?
Aye.
Allocating $300?
Yes.
Yes.
Good. Aye.
So that's for the party. Are we interested in doing some kind of gift? If so, what?
You know, that's a hard one to deal with because the person that has everything, it does everything. It's a hard thing that, you know, I know when I step down as Senate Chair, you get a gavel with your name on it, but that's that kind of thing. It's hard, the other way to handle that. The event is the major thing,
The other thing.
and the other thing. Yeah, that's kind of where things are. You know, I can think of all kind of crazy things, you know, like
We could ask his wife what she would suggest.
that might be a possibility, yeah.
You just see. I'd rather give him something, he's a user type person.
You know, that's what I'm saying, but
So-
user.
If she can give us something that he would actually use and utilize, I think that would be something good. I think we just need to recognize the momentous service that he's done for the town, so.
Absolutely.
Custom-made knife.
A custom-made knife? Okay.
Yeah, nice folding knife, it's got a little thing on it with his name, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Can we ask the town administrator to ask the
Bowie
wife?
knife or like a jackknife?
No, it'd be a folding knife, one that he would carry on his,
Mhm.
Can we ask the town administrator to ask his wife what
Yes.
she would recommend if that's, propose that, and see what she says,
See what else she says.
and maybe we can talk about it at the next meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
I like that.
And in regards to donations, I'll check and see who is amenable to taking donations. And we'll go with that.
All right.
Okay,
Oh, anything from the staff in terms of when to have a staff barbecue that the selectmen will put on?
Well, I think the majority consensus was to do it at lunchtime.
Okay.
But the obvious problem with that is we really can't shut the entire government down. So people would have to go in stages.
If we did it on a Wednesday at lunchtime at the town center? And just,
At the town center, you mean like in the parking lot?
well, not in the parking lot, but maybe on the grass someplace.
Yeah, I mean, you still have the issue of, you know, the police all can't leave and come at once and,
Well, that would get the most number of people, because the transfer station isn't open, so they could come if they wanted
right.
to.
I thought we were
Get the
doing it,
library.
I thought we were doing it at Little River Park.
We could,
Yeah,
but then that
that'd
would
be
be
nice.
problematic for the administrative staff, because you say you can't close down.
but if you're gonna
Right.
cook something, where you gonna bring grills out to the,
You could,
huh?
you could.
Yeah, I know you could, but it would be easier to just go to the park from 12 or 11 to 1 or whatever.
If you can't close
They
down.
could come and go, I mean, everybody wouldn't have to come at one
I
time.
mean, that, yeah, that's what we were thinking, that, you know, we'd have to
Okay.
tag team.
Okay,
Yeah, I like that idea.
so let's find a date that works the best for everybody
Okay.
in terms of all those things. So we'll do lunchtime,
Whatever.
whatever.
Yeah, it's good, I'll bring a cake.
You know, you have to bring the drone so you can take pictures, then we can have,
We'll never get out of there. Doesn't take much
we'll
anymore.
just leave him there flying his drone and we'll all leave.
And after he has a couple of them. I don't have anything to add, it's all been discussed before about planning board issues.
All set?
All set, everybody all set, make a motion, we adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye. Right, we'll have to go